Taking body measurements is the foundation to having perfectly fitted garments. Fast and accurate measuring technique is a skill every successful dressmaker needs to create top-quality corsets, bodices, see-through bodysuits, and many other types of tight-fitting garments. The body should be measured as it is. It means you should do the preliminary marking of the silhouette and know well the style of desired garment before you do the measuring. Please always remind your client about the dress code. You should both take it seriously. I am going to use a realistic-looking mannequin to illustrate how to take body measurements. It may look a little weird compared to a traditional dress form, but it is perfect for accurate demonstration of the measuring process. Let us begin. First of all, your client should wear her favorite, most comfortable bra that is supportive and flattering. Secondly, your client should wear skin-tight clothes that will outline her silhouette. Please, no jeans, bulky sweaters, decorations, and belts, because they will make a difference. I divide corset measurements in two categories: compulsory measurements, which must always be taken regardless of the style of garment, and supplementary measurements, which depend on the style of the future garment. Let us first talk about the compulsory measurements required to sew a corset with a one-piece cup. These key measurements are bust circumference, bust front, under bust circumference, under bust front, waist circumference, stomach circumference, bust middle, clip, side length from waist to bust, above bust front, waist to shoulder blade. Dresses require two important measurements: hip circumference, skirt length. I measure all circumferences in a traditional way. Pay attention! Always follow the measuring rules. If the tape measure must go horizontally, please make sure it really does. If it is difficult for you to find the correct position of each circumference line, you can mark it with tailor's soap right on the client's clothes or with a cord. Later, you will make a new pattern or adjust the standard pattern to the client's measurements, using the distance between the circumference lines and exact measurements in relation to these lines. One might think that such detailed explanation of measuring technique is unnecessary. Let me disagree. I believe it is much better to invest some time in listening and understanding now than later deal with mistakes because of inaccurate measuring. Bust circumference. The bust measurement is calculated by taking the circumference of the fullest area around the bust. It should be a straight, horizontal line. Turn your client sideways and sit down so that the presumed bust line comes into view. Imagine the shape of the curve on the garment. Do you see the bust curve? That's where the bust line is. If you think that for better proportions you need to move the bust line up or down, test your idea straight away. Adjust the bra straps as needed. Please take measuring seriously. Do not rely on your imagination. The position of the measurement on your client's body must coincide with the position of the measurement on the pattern. Inaccurate measuring values or wrong bust line position can affect the cup size or fit of the neckline. The measurement is taken directly along the bust line. Please remember to tighten the tape measure a little when measuring the bust circumference on a woman in a push-up bra. and loosen it when working with a woman with full breasts in a minimized bra. Accuracy gap for this measurement comprises 0.5 centimeters. For example, if the value is 90.5 centimeters, it is safe to choose either 90 or 91 centimeters. I recommend trying both options. You can tighten the tape measure by 0.5 centimeters, then loosen it, and after that, you will see which value suits better. Bust front. Bust front is taken between side seams directly along the bust line. This measurement indicates the correct position of the side seam. It is highly important to find the correct position of side seams in the garment. Mark them on a body with a cord, elastic band, or draw a soap line. Accuracy gap of this measurement comprises 0.5 centimeters, which means 2 to 3 millimeters for each side. If you don't get the whole value, then you should retake the measurement and think which will be better for this particular situation. Move the future garment further from the body by a couple of millimeters, or vice versa. Make it tighter. Under bust circumference. The measuring tape goes directly under the breasts. Any type of corset or a bodice has a sturdy structure. For that reason, breasts of any size will be lifted up a little. If your client's bust is sagging down in a bra and you cannot easily reach the under bust area with a measuring tape, you should return to the previous step and adjust the bra straps to imitate the position of the bust in a corset. After that, you retake bust circumference and bust front measurements. Once you have the correct values, you can move on to taking under bust circumference. Please do not tighten the measuring tape when taking the under bust circumference. It is safe to round this measurement up to the nearest whole number. You should never make the garment too tight in the rib cage area. In cases with slim clients with small amount of fat deposits, I recommend loosening the measuring tape to reach a whole number value. Fuller figured clients require personal consideration in each case. In most cases, you can safely tighten the tape by 0.5 to 0.8 centimeters. Example, for a slim woman, you should round the value of 70.5 centimeters to 71 centimeters. For a plus-size woman, the measurement of 90.5 centimeters can either be 90 centimeters or 91 centimeters. If you are not sure, make a note to yourself and choose the best option later when you construct the pattern. Under bust front. Under bust front is taken between the side seams across the under bust line, just like the bust front measurement. This measurement, together with the bust front, indicates the correct position of the side seams addressing individual anatomic features of a client's body as well. If the measurement value falls at a decimal number, you should round it to the nearest whole number. Please remember to check the bust front measurement to see if you should round the value up or down. Waist circumference. Please make sure to measure the waist circumference horizontally when you make a pattern for a corset, bodice, or a tight-fitting mesh garment. Waistline is crucially important both for the draft and the fitting. I bet you have seen it many times when a bride keeps pulling her dress up by tugging at the top edge. This clearly indicates that the garment was not fit well and the waistline was not placed correctly. To avoid such mistakes in the future, let us find the waistline position. One definition states that a natural waistline is the narrowest part of your torso. Another definition says that a waistline is about 1.5 hand distance underneath the bust line. And there is a third definition that says the waistline is 2 to 3 centimeters underneath the rib cage. As for me, I use my personal experience to position this line. You should put a cord or an elastic band around the proposed waistline. Step back from your client to get a bigger picture and decide where it will be best to position this line. After that, you should put the measuring tape around the band and try to tighten it by 2 to 3 centimeters more than you usually do. If the body tightens well, that means you positioned the waistline correctly. You should keep the measuring tape tight by 1.5 to 2 centimeters for the waist circumference. By doing so, you will ensure that the future corset clings to a client's body in a comfortable way, providing a snug fit. Wearing a corset that is not tight enough around the waist is really awkward and uncomfortable. If you need to tighten the corset even more than by 1.5 to 2 centimeters, you should fix the measuring tape at the desired value and see how it works for your client. I advise you to check all your assumptions as well as your client's preferences during the measuring process. You should never use the values that you did not check. Waist circumference is taken as it is. It means it will be of the same value on the finished garment. I highly recommend you to pay attention to fat deposits found under your client's rib cage, close to the waistline. If the client's body is soft enough in this area, then you can safely deduct a couple of centimeters from her waist circumference. If the client's ribs are palpable and protruding, you should be very careful with waist restriction. The corset is likely to turn out too tight in the waist area. It will squeeze the client's body in and make her feel not just discomfort, but pain. I want to emphasize that you should always pay attention to the individual features of your client's body when taking waist circumference measurement. Stomach circumference. Stomach circumference is a straight horizontal line taken from a particular distance from the waistline. Please note that it is necessary to indicate the position of the stomach line on the body by putting a cord or an elastic band around the area. Then you should measure the distance from the band to the waistline. You should never tighten the measuring tape around your client's stomach when taking her stomach circumference measurement. When the tape measure clings to the body without squeezing it, that is the value you need to use. The accuracy gap comprises 0.5 centimeters. If you need a whole number, I recommend rounding the value up, not down. Now, let us discuss the situation when your plus-size client needs her stomach to be shaped. You should make sure you choose the correct shape of the corset bottom edge. I recommend choosing a corset with a straight or slightly curved bottom line. When there is a big difference along the corset length, the body will be shaped only in the short parts. All the excessive body volume will be pushed down, and instead of a flat stomach, you will see bulges at the corset bottom. Hip circumference. Hip circumference is taken horizontally from the particular distance below the waistline. Please note that it is necessary to indicate the position of the hip line on the body by putting a cord or an elastic band around the area. Then you should measure the distance from the band to the waistline. You should always pay attention to the thigh and belly areas and take them into account when you do the measuring. Now I will show you the easy way to measure your client's hips accurately. You should take a wide plastic band and stick a measuring tape on it. The plastic band should cling to the body. The accuracy gap of 0.5 centimeters is allowed. If you need a whole number value, I recommend rounding it up, not down. Bust middle. Unlike traditional garments, in corset pattern, bust middle is not the distance between bust apex points. This measurement indicates the position of the bust princess seams on the future garment. Bust princess seams at the front of the corset may not necessarily run through bust apex point. In corset garments, bust middle is a distance between the bust princess seams. The golden ratio formula tells us that the distance between the bust princess seams equals the distance to the jugular notch. You can imagine a triangle with 3 equal sides. If you want classical proportions, you should apply the golden ratio formula to help you take the bust middle measurement. Try adjusting the bra straps to get your client's proportions close to the ideal ratio. But you should keep in mind that golden triangle proportion cannot be applied to all types of female body shapes. The larger the bust is, the smaller the distance between the bust princess seams should be. This way, we make the bust look smaller. For a woman with bust circumference of 100 to 115 centimeters, for example, an average bust middle value will be 24 to 25 centimeters. And it is our job to make the bust look beautiful and well proportioned. To make it look smaller, we use a smaller bust middle value on purpose. Instead of the average 25 centimeters, we can make it, say, 23 centimeters, thereby putting the bust princess seams closer together and creating a very flattering look. Naturally, smaller breasts require larger distance between the bust princess seams. By increasing the average bust middle value, we broaden the chest, and therefore small-sized breasts appear slightly bigger. For a girl with bust circumference of 86 to 88 centimeters, for example, the average bust middle value is 16 to 17 centimeters. We increase the measurement to 19 or even 20 centimeters. And thereby, the distance between the bust princess seams gets bigger. I believe it is clear now that you can use the same corset pattern for several sizes by adjusting the bust middle measurement according to your client's body. You should also know that lacing at the back helps to customize the corset as well. Before you start taking the measurement, I advise you to step away from your client, examine her body from a distance, and then decide where to put princess seams. After that, you should take the accurate measurement. Bust middle measurement is taken horizontally along the bust line. Since this measurement is rather personal, I tend to round the value up to the nearest whole number. For bust circumference of 88 centimeters and more, the change in the position of the princess seams is 2 to 3 millimeters either side. Will make absolutely no difference. Tip: mark one of the endpoints of the bust middle line. You can do it with a pin or draw a mark with tailor's soap. It will be the starting point of several measurements and pattern construction. For this reason, it is highly important to fix it in the right position. Once we have indicated the position of the bust princess seams at the front, it is time we take the clip measurements. This measurement helps to figure out the shape of the upper edge of the corset as well as the height of one-piece cup in relation to the bust line. This measurement requires accuracy. Therefore, you should draw the desired upper edge shape of the corset right on your client's clothes. Draw the shape and length of the neckline together with the height and shape of the cup. Now place your left thumb at the point where the left princess seam intersects with the bust line. We took the bust middle measurement right between this point and its symmetric counterpart on the other side. Place your index finger at the top position of the cup. Usually, that is the point where a strap is attached to a bra cup. Measure the distance between your thumb and index finger. That is our clip toward top measurement. Now, move your index finger toward the client's underarm. You should find the point where the hanging arm joins the body. Place your index finger at the upper edge line of the corset. Measure the distance between your thumb and index finger. And voila! We have taken clip toward arm side measurement. Now, place your index finger at the point where your thumb used to be and move your thumb to the drawn neckline of the corset. Please note that the line between your fingers should form a 45-degree angle to your bust line. Measure the distance between your fingers. This is our clip toward neckline measurement. Clip measurements require absolute accuracy. Write down the numbers up to 1 decimal place. Every millimeter makes a difference. Please pay attention that we take all measurements as they are. Instead of using vague formulas, we measure a particular distance from a particular point. When we later come to constructing a pattern, we will easily find the starting point to draft these measurements and get the desired neckline. Tip: the shape of your client's bra cups can be used as a guide to the desired neckline shape of the corset. Side length from waist to bust. This measurement indicates the exact position of the bust line on the future pattern. You should measure the side distance between the waistline and the bust line. The measurement is to be taken as it is, without any rounding up or down. Above bust front. This measurement helps to calculate the correct size of the darts in the bust princess seams to ensure the tight fitting of the neckline. You should take the measurement following the front outer edge line. The measuring tape should start in the top point of one side edge, then go along the outer line of the corset edge, and finish in the top point of the opposite side edge. The accuracy gap for the measurement should not exceed a couple of millimeters. Please keep in mind that above bust front shows the real fit of the neckline, so you should decide whether the measuring tape is tight enough to reach the desired fit or not. If needed, customize the tightness to the desired level. Skirt length. In this section, I will show you how to take measurements for a skirt without petticoat and crinoline. I will talk about full skirts in our next tutorial about supplementary measurements. So, for a straight skirt, we need 3 measurements: back skirt length, side skirt length, and front skirt length. These measurements are required to make a skirt pattern, and they include the hips and buttocks curves. Please make sure the measuring tape makes a straight, vertical line from the waistline to the floor. When you measure the back skirt length, you should start in the middle of your client's back. When you measure the side skirt length, follow the side seam position. The front skirt length is to be taken exactly from the middle of your client's front. When making mini, midi, and maxi skirts, you should take an additional measurement. You just let the measuring tape drop vertically from your client's waist to reach a desired skirt length. The only measurement that has to be taken of your client's back is waist to shoulder blade measurement. It will show you the position of the top edge of the corset at the back. Ask your client to stand up, bend her arms at the elbows, and move them back a little. This position will easily help you find the bottom edge of her shoulder blades. Please remember that the top edge of the corset must go about 1 centimeter below the shoulder blade line. If it goes along the shoulder blade line, you will inevitably have that fat bulge hanging over the corset edge, regardless of your client's build. A corset is a sturdy construction which fits tightly around the waist and cannot move vertically. The top edge of its back is pushed into her shoulder blades whenever your client takes a beautiful pose with her shoulders open. Her shoulder blades will naturally come closer and form the bulge. To avoid this ungraceful look, I recommend you to keep the top edge 1 centimeter below the shoulder blade line. If your garment is supposed to have a high back, you should make sure the top edge goes above the shoulder blades. Knowing this measurement, we can easily calculate the back height value for the future lacing. All other measurements are supplementary and taken after you have a finished sketch of a garment. We will talk about them in the next tutorial.